After some stinging defeats and public embarrassments on the domestic front, President Trump has been taking a more global view the past few days. Today, he hosted Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the White House to talk about immigration policy and trade, since our neighbor to the north is another partner in NAFTA. This weekend, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was here to meet President Trump, which came as North Korea successfully launched a ballistic missile.
I just want everybody to understand and fully know that the United States of America stands behind Japan, its great ally, 100%.
Dealing with the rogue behavior of a dictator might seem like the easy part of the job to Donald Trump. He's trying to figure out the next step on his travel ban. A senior advisor got her hands slapped for pitching Ivanka Trump's merchandise on TV, and National Security Advisor Michael Flynn could be in trouble for talking to the Russians before Trump took office. It's all feeding a storyline that the Trump White House is in chaos and heads could soon roll. Some Democrats are taking the ball and running with his narrative.
Is it true that Republican colleagues of yours expressed concern about President Trump's mental health?
A few.
Really?
Yeah. It's not the majority of them. It's a few.
In what way?
In the way that we all have this suspicion.
When it comes to the court of public opinion, here's the verdict. A poll found a 46-46 split amongst voters when asked if Trump should be impeached as he starts just the fourth week of his presidency. That poll also found his disapproval rating is now up to 53%, and the more voters would prefer to see Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton in the White House. So is there a way out of this for Trump? Joining me are Jesse Mermel, Jesse's former chief of communications for Governor Deval Patrick. Jesse, nice to see you. State Representative Jeff Deal, who was the co-chair of Donald Trump's campaign here in Massachusetts and is reported to be seriously considering a challenge to Senator Elizabeth Warren. Representative, it's good to see you, too. Let me start with you. Here is Mike Pence on Face the Nation. I think it was on January 15th, talking about the reports that General Flynn had these conversations about possibly lowering or removing the sanctions imposed by Barack Obama before Donald Trump was president. Here it is.
They did not discuss anything having to do with the United States' decision to expel diplomats or impose a censure against Russia.
It appears that General Flynn, National Security Advisor, lied to the Vice President of the United States, which put the Vice President in a position to essentially misrepresent the facts to the American people. Why does he still have a job?
Well, first of all, I think this is blown up a little bit out of proportion.
How so?
The first thing is, just like Donald Trump was getting a jump on his presidency before he was even inaugurated, doing a lot of work getting companies to stay here, I think that all that Flynn was doing was just trying to create a dialogue. It wasn't like he was leaning over to a Russian ambassador and saying, I'll have more flexibility after the inauguration.
But he was talking about the sanctions. 9 sources told the Washington Post that, and he apparently misrepresented it to the Vice President of the United States.
If I said to you, I'm going to talk to you about sanctions, we just talked about sanctions. It doesn't necessarily mean they got into detail. So I don't think it was, again, anything
You don't
really
think
egregious.
he hung Mike Pence out to dry?
No, I don't think so. I think he just wanted to let him know it wasn't anything substantial.
Yeah, my guess is you think that Flynn committed a sin, at least there. But, you know, one day Flynn's horrible to the Democrats. Then it's Steve Bannon. Then it's Stephen Miller, who we just met, the 31-year-old. Then it's Pudzer, the guy who wants to be secretary. Is there a point at which this constant drumbeat about how horrible everybody who works for his guy is going to backfire on the Democrats, if it hasn't backfired already?
No, it's a fair question. It's a tough needle to thread because at some point people turn it out. Here's the problem. They're all genuinely horrible. I mean, Steve Bannon, if you're a person of color or a woman or someone from, the Jewish community or just anyone who cares about those folks, you have real reason to be concerned. If you're someone who cares about working families, the new Secretary of Labor is someone you should be genuinely concerned about.
So you go to the man on everybody, you think?
I don't think we can let anyone get a pass, and we have to figure out how we do that in a way that keeps people from tuning us out.
Speaking of strategy, we talked last week with a couple of my guests, but when I saw this public policy poll, I was speechless. 46% of American people in a tie believe this guy should be impeached. My guess is that not one of them has an idea about what he should be impeached for. I'm assuming it's because, the Democrats have been unsuccessful defeating him on anything, so we might as well impeach him. Is that helpful? I'm serious. Is that helpful to the Democratic strategy here to be talking about impeaching a guy 17 days after he took, 24 days after he took office?
In a Republican-controlled Congress, no. I think the thing that needs to be focused on for the Democrats right now is getting some power back in 2 years. If we had any control in the House or the Senate and we had a legitimate thing that we wanted to impeach Donald Trump on, then perhaps it's a real conversation.
Is that a legitimate thing?
That's not where we are right now. Where we need to be focused on is getting some power back in 2 years in the midterms.
You know, but the one, even if it turns out that this is not real, not just because the Republicans control both chambers, but also because maybe I believe it's more and more a frustration, and I think you tend to agree. It's not a good sign 3 weeks in for half the people who are polled thinking the guy should be removed to office. I mean, how do you rally the American people around anything you care about when SNL is seen as more credible in the same poll than the President of the United States is?
Well, speaking of SNL, I mean, Al Franken, here's a guy who once made faces at Mitch McConnell during a hearing on Elena Kagan for Supreme Court, had to write an apology letter claiming that, Donald Trump has mental health issues. That does not help get to where we're at. The country voted for Donald Trump because they are sick of what's going on in D.C., the gridlock and the obstruction, and now the Democrats are doubling down on the obstruction. That's not going to help the American people.
How about this Franken thing that he just mentioned? By the way, he was quoting, he says, a couple of Republican senators, even though he didn't. Is that helpful, saying the president may have a mental health issue? I mean, he said he's a liar and all that he went on to say. Is that helpful? What is helpful? I mean, is helpful?
That's probably the bigger question. What is helpful?
Well, you saw the cover of Chuck Schumer. Do the Democrats matter? The cover of Time magazine with a close-up of Chuck Schumer, the leader in the Senate. There it is, right there. Do the Democrats matter?
We don't have a choice. We have to matter. We have to figure out what we do, how we package our message, how we get on the ground, how we approach a field campaign, how we engage people who have not felt like the Democratic Party is the place for them, the place that cares about them, that sees them, whether that's someone who's, a working white man living in rural Pennsylvania where I grew up, or whether that's a person of color living in a city, or anyone in between. We genuinely care about those people. I don't care whether or not people think Democrats matter. I care about whether or not they think the values that we represent and the candidates we're putting out there matter and will make their lives better. People don't care about parties.
What do you say to what Representative said a minute ago? This guy, I'm putting words in your mouth, but you'll agree, that essentially that this guy was elected to be disruptor in chief. I mean, that is essentially what you were saying a minute ago.
And he's done for the last 3 weeks.
And
exactly what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail.
Tell him he's wrong.
No, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And for Trump voters who thought that what he was saying was, oh, he was just saying that, but you're not taking him seriously. He's just using words. It's not real. I think people are getting a big wake-up call. And for the majority of Americans who voted for Hillary Clinton, this is absolutely terrifying. It feels like a complete slap in the face to our values. And a lot of people feel genuinely afraid. That's not hyperbole. There are people who feel genuinely afraid about their future in this country, and that's a terrifying idea.
By the way, included in the list of people who aren't crazy in that poll, the people who aren't crazy about some things the disruptor has done, Donald Trump, is this immigration ban, and the number is far beyond the number of people who voted for Hillary Clinton. They don't like the fact that it apparently wasn't vetted, that he didn't, now Donald Trump apparently is screaming about it. Yeah, but he's the president. What kind of guy says, did the lawyers look at this? Was it vetted through our Secretary of State in waiting? I mean, isn't this, the buck does stop with this guy, no?
Yeah, look, clearly people have admitted it'd be nice to have had Jeff Sessions in as Attorney General so he could review this before it went out. The chain of command was a little bit out of whack.
Why wasn't it bipartisan? Why, for a guy who says he can work, why wasn't every Democrat I've ever heard is in leadership is probably as concerned about terrorism, even if they have a different angle, as Donald Trump is. Why didn't he bring them all in instead of this executive order that was, again, unvetted? Say, what can we work on together here? Yeah,
well, I mean, look, the Senate's been completely obstructive in every single one of the secretaries that he's nominated. Only 7 out of the 15 he needs have been way behind as far as where we were with.
General Mattis is virtually unanimous. So was General Kelly. I mean, a lot of them were not. They weren't obstructed at all. They were almost unanimous.
Right. But I mean, again, this is what everybody's claiming the White House is in chaos. They need their full staff in place. People aren't giving them the tools Donald Trump.
They also didn't nominate people until well after Election Day. They weren't prepared for a transition. A lot of this is on them.
I disagree with that, but I will say, the chief obstructionist in,
Their transition team will tell you they weren't prepared for a transition because they didn't think they were going to win.
Chief
they got caught with their pants
down. The chief obstructionist is, I think, the senior senator from Massachusetts. She's the point person on everything that goes against Donald Trump. It looks like she's positioning herself for a run in 2020, and there hasn't been a single nominee for one of these secretary positions that she hasn't found, like you say, deplorable to an extent.
She actually voted for Ben Carson as head of housing.
Horrible, I don't know.
She voted for Ben Carson.
But with serious objection.
Is she the right face of the Democratic opposition, Elizabeth Warren? I mean, she is the de facto face right now.
At this point, she's I think, made one of the most articulate cases about why Donald Trump's agenda doesn't reflect the values that so many Americans hold. And I think it remains to be seen who the right face or faces are moving forward. I personally would like to see, younger faces, more diverse faces, in addition to Senator Warren, not in place of.
By the way, Politico says Hillary Clinton's running for president again.
Oh my
you read
goodness,
that today?
I saw that story. I took so many Tums, Jim. You don't even know.
Speaking of Elizabeth Warren, Harold's reporting you're seriously considering. Where are you on the spectrum of seriously considering?
It's early. I mean, look, I've been talked to by folks in D.C. and people here in Massachusetts. It's something I need to talk to my family about. You obviously have to start considering this, but it's only been a few weeks since inauguration and of my own
so it's possible.
rep seat. It's
I don't know.
possible.
He's sitting here wearing a flag pin.
So before
always wear a flag.
Before you go away, though, the president apparently refers to her, this is the president of the United States in meetings, as Pocahontas. Do you find that objectionable at all, or is that okay with you?
Look, it's not the right course of action, I don't think. But she has also been somebody who has had a lot of declaratives used against Donald Trump, including clucking like a chicken.
Should he be calling her Pocahontas?
No, I don't think so. But what's at the issue is really what she did, which was checked off a box for minority hiring that she did not qualify for. She pushed somebody else out of a job that she shouldn't have taken.
Sounds like you're ready for a campaign. What?
He's the president of the United States, not a third grader on the playground. Grow up and move on.
Jesse, nice to see you.
See you, Jim.
How are you? Representative,
Jim,
good luck. Let us know how it
Appreciate
goes. Appreciate it.